Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Founder Showcase. My name is Jonathan Grecian. I'm a co-founder of the Founder Institute, and I'm going to be the MC for you today for this event. We're super excited about this event. We had over 1,500 people register from all around the world. So please, let's not make it a quiet 1,500, all right? If you're in the chat, let us know that you're in the chat. Let us know where you are joining from. I know we took a quick look at some of the locations that people were registering to this event from today, and it was kind of insane. The number of countries, the number of continents. Here we go already. Naitik from Ahmedabad, Christina from Minnesota, Charlie, who's going to be presenting today from Indonesia, Edinburgh, Scotland, Luxembourg, Istanbul, Austin, Texas, Morocco, Dubai, Barcelona, Bangalore, Portugal, Amsterdam. Awesome. Awesome. Let us know where you're coming in from. Look, the best thing that we can do with these online events, I know that we all sort of are getting a little bit of this Zoom fatigue, right? Well, we're trying to create events that are a little bit of an antidote to Zoom fatigue. We try to make events that are super, super interactive. So if you have any questions at any time, throw them into the chat. You should use this event to meet people, and you'll see one of the great things about this platform that we're using today, AirMeet, is that there is an interactive networking lounge where you can actually meet people, like for real, online. All right, so let's all try to use this event to meet people, to engage, and that's just going to be a better and healthier event, I think, for all of us. So why don't we kick things off? This is now the 20th Founder Showcase event that we've run. Believe it or not, we've been running these events since 2009. And the whole purpose of this event is, number one, to bring in some of the global thought leaders on entrepreneurship to share some of the things that they're thinking, some of their best practices. And then number two, to showcase pre-seed and seed stage startups before you typically would see them anywhere else. All right, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that over the years. There have been unicorn companies like Udemy, like Thumbtack, that have done some of their first pitches on the Founder Showcase stage, and we have 10 companies today from all different kinds of sectors and all corners of the planet. And I think some of these, the potential to become some unicorns as well. So we're really interested in showcasing you, no pun intended, or pun intended, I guess, some of those companies today. All right, so without further ado, we're going to kick off this event with a keynote talk. Patrick Reilly he's the CEO of GAN, and for those of you who don't know, GAN is the Global Accelerator Network. Patrick, why don't you bring yourself on stage here? And Global Accelerator Network is an organization, and I'll let Pat describe it a little bit better, but it's, I believe, thousands, if I'm not mistaken, of accelerators are part of this network, and they put out recently a super interesting report, a global accelerator report on all of the trends and what's going on in accelerators around the world. In addition to that, Pat also runs GAN Ventures, which is the investment arm of GAN, and he's just generally an awesome guy, and he's from Colorado, so that just gives him some extra, brownie points in my book. But Pat, do you want to fill in any blanks there, what I might have missed?
No, let's do it. That's great. I'll gladly take the intro and get started. So first of all, I love seeing that there are hundreds of people coming in from around the world, and my light just went out. So forgive me for the light going out, but hopefully you can still see me, and we can do this. So
still pretty good lighting.
Okay, good. Well, we'll do it, and here we go. So first of all, can everybody see my screen? Okay, cool. Jonathan, you got it? Well, here we go. So as Jonathan just mentioned, I'm the CEO of GAN, which is a global community for the leaders of accelerators, venture studios, and Fortune 500 innovation teams around the world who lead and innovate with startups. And I'm also the managing partner of a VC fund called GAN Ventures, which invests in 1 to 3 seed stage startups a month. Working with startups over the last decade, I've come to realize that we're wasting our abundance. And in the next 24 minutes, we get to dig into this question. And here's what I mean. Until, let's say, 1900, we as a collective group lived in a world of scarcity. That world, around the turn of the century, around 1900, was full of factories, farming, right, and very little extra time. right? At that time, only the rich were ones that had time to relax and enjoy the good things of life. Until that time, like the majority of people thought more about their survival than about what it means to thrive. And I know people are from all over the world here, but the average lifespan of an American at the turn of the 20th century was around 47 years old. And I have a child. I know many of you have a child. Most of us would have had at least one child die at that time. So on today's call, most of you are running a company. And what's different from today than what happened a few years ago was that what was required of business owners back then, around the turn of the century, was extraction and development. So think about this. Businesses before 1900, mainly what they're doing is taking raw materials out of the world and utilizes new technologies like the steam engine, the factory, all to turn materials into durable goods. And there was a strong and primary focus on taking what the world had and immediately putting it to use for our own survival. Most farms were creating only enough food for those in its close orbit. Most technologies were only focused on better extraction and development. For instance, the Ford Model T truck was all about extracting metal and gas out of the ground and creating a tool that moved people and goods more efficiently than a horse and a buggy. And frankly, that project worked. Over time, and with real ingenuity, the Pax Americana of the post-World War II America and in developing countries around the world, that emerged. And beginning then, at least in the Western world, access to credit skyrocketed along with government spending, ensuring that many of the humans in our country now had access to a house and basic necessities fulfilled. And also, through innovations in public health, nutrition, and social support, many of us on the call today, and this is really important, many of us on the call today traded questions premised about the facts of scarcity for a set of questions about the quality and direction of our lives. And what's happened? Now, all over the world, people can now anticipate living well into their 70s. And life is not only getting longer, but it's getting better. Think about it, guys, we now trade worrying about our next meal to worrying about things like race and sex and drugs and self-actualization and rock and roll, right? All of this was actually the result of the fact that for more and more people, finding one next meal or housing had become a thing of the past. And this isn't something that came out of nowhere. Right? Many of you have probably read John Keynes' famous essay, which is called Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren. Keynes published it in 1930, just after the market crash. And here's what he predicted. He predicted that through the power of compound interest, the real question for all of us was not how are we going to overcome scarcity and what he called the world of wants, but what in the world are we going to do with all of this leisure? And this is what he called our permanent problem. And in one of my favorite passages from the essay, he expressed real concern that once the problem of subsistence, of getting people food and shelter was solved, we as an economy, as countries, would have a collective nervous breakdown, which he likened to this condition of aristocratic women who could not find domestic duties to find sufficiently amusing. And as he put it, to those who sweat for their daily bread leisure is a longed for sweet until they get it. And here's my point. Keynes in many ways has been proven right. Think about it. Guys, today we have such material ease and comfort, allowing us to do things like today, where we get in and we get to discuss and debate whatever we want to. And we get to discuss and debate and build whatever we want to go build. Like think about COVID times. Even amidst COVID times, we have abundance of time. Like how many of us can watch Netflix on the weekends and at night? We have abundance of friendship. How many of us continue to have time to see and hang out with friends? We have abundance of health. How many of us on the line are healthy because of modern medicine and access to fairly healthy food? We have abundance of longevity of life. We're living longer than we've ever lived before. And we have abundance of peace. Like most of us are not at war or worried about our safety most of the time. You may have noticed here that I use the word abundance because we have an abundance of all of these things, and it's a gift. Abundance is a gift, and it's a new gift. It allows us to think, to discuss, and to debate what will lead to the best quality and direction of our lives. And just like any gift, right? We can either use it or set it aside. I think about this bike that I just gave my daughter for her birthday. She's 6, right? I gave her this new 20-inch bike. This is her trying to figure out how in the world to use it. She can barely fit on the thing, but she's kept at it. And now she rides the bike like a pro. Like, she's not wasting that gift. But like Keynes predicted, frankly, we're having a nervous breakdown. And I fear that many of us, and I'm including myself here, many of us have been wasting this abundance that we have. And it's not because we don't want to waste it. It's that we don't have a good roadmap for what to do with our abundance. So there's 2 questions we're going to dig into today that I want us all to consider. And it's this. First, what are people currently doing with their abundance? And secondly, what does it mean for us? For all the hundreds of people on the line today, what does it mean for us as leaders of startups to thoughtfully extend our abundance to others? So first, what are people currently doing with their abundance? And I see people doing one of 2 things. They're either wasting it through trivialities and hoarding it, or they're sharing their abundance with others. So to the initial point here, what does it mean for us to waste our abundance through trivialities and hoarding it? Okay, think first at the most basic personal level. Outside of work, what do many of us, including myself, what are we doing with our time? We're doom scrolling through TikTok and Instagram. We're binge watching whatever is served up next to us on Netflix or some such. Like, we go out and we're eating crap food at a local bar. We're drinking a little too much on the weekends. We're working too much. We're neglecting the relationships that actually sustain us, and we're lacking gratitude. Before 1900, we were fighting for our survival. Now, instead of fighting for our survival, we're now spending our time consuming whatever is in front of us. And we're calling that progress. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's give ourselves some grace and say that we don't waste our whole of our life on abundance, but the most common alternative to wasting our abundance is actually hoarding it. Where with hoarding it, we keep building bigger and bigger homes for ourselves. We keep getting bigger and bigger cars for ourselves that use more and more gas. We're getting more and more things for ourselves with this abundance. And as you all know, hoarding and wasting our abundance has drastic implications for us as humans in our world. But hoarding and wasting our abundance also has drastic implications on the products we're building at our startups. As humans, if we only consume what's been given to us, what's in front of us, and keep hoarding more and more for ourselves, we never actually get outside of ourselves. And at the same time, study after study is showing us that the happiest and the most successful people out there are the ones who are givers. Many of you know Adam Grant here. Adam Grant, really famous psychologist out of University of Pennsylvania, says that the most successful people are the ones who constantly ask, how can I help you? Versus how can I consume better? Said another way, Adam says that the most meaningful way to succeed is to help others succeed. He goes on to say that the more connected you are, the happier you'll become, and that all starts with how you can help others with giving them the resources, skills, and talents you have. So startups, as leaders to startups, if we only focus on building products and services that lead to people consuming more in an abundant world, we're effectively leading them to an empty well where they'll be stuck, unhappy, and self-focused. Okay, but here's the interesting thing we face as leaders to startups in an abundant world. Because of the financial abundance, where there is more dry powder from VCs ever in the history of our economy, you can go and build almost whatever you want to go build. And dry powder, for those of you that don't know, dry powder is the money that's being given to VCs that haven't spent it yet. So with the way our economy is today, investors are able and willing to put their money into just about anything that has somewhat of a decent chance of success. Said another way, each one of you, can go and build just about anything. I mean, think about that for a second. You can go and build just about anything. But we're at the risk of building more and more ventures that make life less and less interesting and that lead to more and more human self-consumption. And frankly, less and less friction. I mean, you guys can go build a company that creates a new way for us to get around, like Uber or Tesla, or an app that sends yo to your friends. Right? You can go create a company that changes how we keep in touch with friends, or a company that's incentivized to keep you away from friends in a virtual world. You can go create a company that ensures food is quickly and easily delivered to your home. But here's the deal. For each of those real companies above, they've created a valuable product, a product that people use. Yet I'm curious to know how many of them are asking, what makes people's lives actually better? For instance, okay, stop for a second and think about the best movie you've seen lately. Like seriously, just stop for a second, think about the best movie you've seen lately. I'm going to suggest that that movie had some sort of friction, something where someone was up against the world and had to overcome some huge struggle. Like this past week, I just watched Greyhound. It's the World War II movie with Tom Hanks. He's the ship captain trying to take a flotilla across the Atlantic. He was leading the group that was the first ship in the flotilla, right? So every time the Germans came up against the flotilla, he was in charge of attacking the Germans, right? The movie had a great ending, but the whole movie was about the struggle of Tom Hanks' character working through his personal tiredness, stress, and vulnerability to lead his shipmates to safety. And just like the movies we love, the best lives are typically ones that are known for that same sort of friction, where people overcome incredible obstacles to achieve some sort of success. Yet, most of our products and services are being built to take away that friction. And the point is this, for all of you on the line, as people who are building startups, we can optimize for anything. Our abundant world means that you can create just about whatever you want and probably get it funded and have customers. And unfortunately, there isn't much consensus in our world today about what is worth optimizing for. For instance, okay, how many of us today think about new venture creation, creating startups as an exercise in helping people manage their abundance? For years, I never did this, right? And why would I? Like investors and my friends aren't focused on this question. Most of the world just cares about how much we're killing it, how much revenue we have, how many customers we have, how much we just raised. But instead of using our abundance for hoarding or for trivialities, what would happen if we used it for something outside of ourselves? And it's something that I like to call abundance for others versus using abundance for myself. And I may suggest that we think about this idea of abundance for others. And here's why. By using our abundance for others, we're betting on core human needs, even if they're non-obvious. We're building products and services that are both better for end users and better for long-term business strategy. Essentially, every business operates on some form of human need. And they're placing some sort of bet on a better self that's inherently valuable and worthwhile in the long run. So building something that lasts has to do with building something that helps humans become more of who humans were created to be. And if we think about it that way, where our job is to optimize people's abundance, where our job is to create solutions that help them navigate the abundance in front of them, then we can go on to our second question, which is this, which is, what does it mean for us as leaders of startups to thoughtfully extend our abundance to others? And this is something that I'm thinking about a ton. And so many of you heard, right? I run a for-profit VC called GAN Ventures. I run another for-profit community called GAN that connects the accelerators, venture studios, and Fortune 500 innovation teams to one another. And for the last decade, I focused on running two great companies. I've focused on creating great products and services and a great culture. And that is all really, really good. And yet I realized something. I realized that, especially as a white male in America, I've been given incredible opportunities. And even as I create products and services and cultures and invest in companies, I can still create companies that are effectively leading to my and my children's and my friends' long-term demise. I can go and fund companies that make my life easier, but more disconnected from others, that make accessing information easier, but make me less intelligent along the way. I can go and create great companies for humans that are also horrible for our humanity. So in light of that, I've spent the last few years trying to understand, what does it mean to create great companies for humans that are also great for our humanity? And I've been introduced to this amazing woman named Martha Nussbaum. She's part of a set of development economists who are thinking about this idea like ad nauseum. So she is someone, Martha Nussbaum, is someone who's worth thinking about if you're convinced that we are wasting our abundance and could help people live better lives. When people ask Martha, what can we go and build that will help other people live their best lives in a world full of abundance? Here's what she says. She says, what does it mean for people to live their best lives? And to answer that question, Martha Nussbaum and her colleague, Amartya Sen, they developed this idea called the capabilities approach to development economics. And frankly, they've been wildly successful. And their basic insight is really simple, but profound. And it said this. It said, if we want to improve people's lives in an abundant world and help them live the best lives possible in this world, we need to be able to measure what people can actually do. For instance, if people can't get around a city due to their city's infrastructure, or they can't get around a city because they're handicapped and they don't have a wheelchair, it's going to be hard for them to get to work, let alone start a business. And while an economic measure like GDP can give you a sense of how much buying and selling takes place in a society, it tells you very little about what people can actually do. But the goal of managing abundance is not just increasing more and more activity, like whether it's GDP or user engagement or raising capital, like how much capital you've raised, right? But it's actually about making things that make people better. And what do we need to do to go make things that make people better? Nussbaum wanted to say that all of her research pointed towards this idea that our job is not to create more GDP, more investment capital, and more revenue, although those are good things. Rather, the best thing we can do with our abundance, our job, is to help people have capabilities to do the things they want to do in the world. And over time, ensure that people have more and more capabilities to do what they want to do in the world. Like for instance, going back to my daughter, Nussbaum would say that it's my job. Nussbaum would say that it's not my job to help my daughter get an A on her test. It's not my job to help my daughter get an A on her test. It's my job to ensure that she has the capabilities to live in a safe home, a home full of emotion, a place where she can be attached to others, a place where she's capable to play, and a place where she's capable to have agency. The most agency she can have is a 6-year-old living in Denver, Colorado. And Nussbaum would give each of us the following prompt. she would say that our job as CEOs of companies is not to just get people to use our app and pay us money, although those are good things. Rather, the best use of our time and energy and the best thing that will lead to our long-term success as founders is creating companies that give people the capabilities they need to ultimately go and live their lives. And that's why at Gain Ventures, we invest in things like Spark Grills. It's a charcoal grill that operates like a gas grill, but uses charcoal as its fuel. And I love their CEO, because there are two ways that Ben, the CEO, could have thought about the purpose of his company. He could have said that his only purpose was to get users for the grill and revenue and investment capital. Yet Ben is saying that his purpose is to give people the capability to connect with others. Because you think about a grill, what are you doing? You're outside with friends, providing food that then ultimately people connect over. So he's going, instead of just making a product with revenue, he wants to provide a grill that gives people the capability to love, care, and be attached to others. Okay, so as we round this down, as we start wrapping up, what in the world does this mean for us as leaders of startups to thoughtfully extend our abundance to others? And frankly, I have no idea what this means for you. But Nussbaum and Sen would say that the best use of our time, energy, and work is to use our abundance, our tools, our resources, and gift to give others the capability to go off and do whatever they want to do in the world. To give others things like this, the ability to be free, to love, grieve, care, and be attached to others, right? The ability to play, to be able to recreate and find joy, the ability to craft a plan for one's life. But here's why I like all of this. In a world of scarcity, where the metric for success was all about financial metrics, like how much are we going to produce, how much are we going to create, what are we going to form? And in an abundant world, those metrics, while still useful, don't get to the heart of what we're able to do with our abundance. And the metric that I get excited to go after, is one that has to do with asking if the products we're building actually help people have increasing capabilities to live lives full of agency, connection, and health. Okay, so where do we go from here? Here's what we now know. We now realize that 1, we're living in a world full of abundance. 2, we realize that the chief question for us is what are we going to do with that abundance? And 3, we realize that the great opportunity for us and our startups is to increase the capabilities for others to be able to go and do what they want to do in the world. And as I think about this, it's like, what is the roadmap to make sure that we and others don't waste this abundance? And here's what I found. I think number 1, I'm asking myself a lot, what does it mean? What does a thriving person look like in an abundant world? And for me, this is watching the people at Snooze in Denver. It's a breakfast restaurant in downtown Denver. People there are free to connect with others over a great breakfast, where they're laughing, connecting, discussing life with one another. And why is this thriving to me? It's because it's people who have the time, resources, freedom, and capabilities to connect with other humans and engage freely in thoughtful, life-giving discussions. Secondly, it's this. I've done a lot of work to ask myself, what has happened to make these people thriving in an abundant world? And for me, this is where Nussbaum has helped me tremendously. Like, she said that people who are thriving have the capability to thrive. And without the capability to thrive, they'll never end up becoming thriving people. Without the capability to get to work, people can't actually work. So she would say that thriving people need to have the capability and increased capabilities to go and do what they want to do in the world. And finally, I'm asking myself this, which is, what can I do through my work to increase people's capabilities to become more thriving people in an abundant world? What can I do? And it's things like, how can I go invest in more Spark Grills that are better letting people be free to live with and towards others? And how can I invest in companies like Omnia Fishing, which is another one of our companies that helps people find the best fishing spots and the tackle to go with them when they go fishing, help them play, create, and find joy? And how can I go and build a community at GAN that helps people have more control over their environment through our company culture and being a community that empowers people to become who they want to become? right? And ultimately, this will lead us to a place where we can live out our vision, which is a more whole economy where our systems are more responsive to the needs, dignity, and potential of all people. Okay, so, but it all boils down to this. What would it mean for you and your startup to handle our abundance with seriousness? And that is frankly our task. What would it mean for you and your startup to handle our abundance with seriousness? I can't wait to hear what you do. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Pat. That was awesome. And everybody, if you have questions for Pat, please put them into the chat. I'm going to start off with a few questions just to warm us up a little bit, Pat. So you are totally speaking our language and my language here at Founder Institute, okay? And just one thing that I'll put here is like, you know, I think with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially a lot of early stage, pre-seed, seed stage entrepreneurs, especially first-time entrepreneurs, they come in with an attitude of trying to extract value from an equation rather than trying to create value in an equation, right? And a lot of times the way I see this kind of manifest itself is when people are like, hey, like you want me to share this idea on some webinar. I can't share this idea. Somebody's going to steal it. And then, right, then I'm like, no, it's not about somebody stealing your idea. That's extracting value. You want people to join your mission so that you can ultimately create value, right? What do you think? Are there, and this just gets to the abundance mindset, right? I feel like we've all been sort of trained in this traditional big company mindset where it's like, okay, you have X number of customers. How do you extract most value from X number of customers, right? Like, is there a way that you've seen to kind of drive this home with some of the entrepreneurs that you've worked with? You know, it's a tricky one, honestly, and it's a paradigm shift that I feel a lot of people need. It's sort of like they need to learn it in practice rather than just sort of like hear it or read it or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's maybe start on a personal level, then we'll start on a macro level.
Yeah.
I would say, I think what I've been so thankful for with Adam Grant out of University of Pennsylvania is him quantifying, frankly, like people's individual success. And what he effectively said is like the people that give more than ask, like they're the ones who across the board keep getting promoted more. They're the salespeople who rise to the top at their companies. So I just think if we're going to be quote unquote selfish here, the best thing we could do is actually give up of ourselves to others. But I think at a macro level, this is where I go, I think about our world today and I go, unless we, I think, number one, recognize what's at our disposal, which is incredible amounts of wealth, right? Which is incredible amounts of opportunity. Unless if we sit here and go like, oh, my whole job is to just go create revenue and investment capital, like we're effectively like, to the point I made earlier, we're hoarding that for ourselves. And I go like, you're living on this earth for 80 years. And what does that effectively do? And I'm not saying it's not great to build wealth. All I'm saying is there's this mentality of going, if my whole job is only to create wealth, create capital, create revenue, create users, you made it all about you and nothing about this greater human experiment that we're all a part of. So, but I think that's something where I think that second part is one where you have to kind of have to get to on your own. And it's not something I can just go, you need to believe this. Yeah. But I believe it's anyways, something we should all be thinking about.
It's a good segue to my second part here, and I keep seeing questions about this. One just came in. Sorry, it's the questions. Chat's moving quickly, but there were a couple comments, right? And I see this a lot too, right? There is a belief that profit is over here, purpose is over here, and they cannot coexist, right? I totally, personally, I totally reject that belief, right? But it is something that a lot of people were saying. We're like, oh, well, this is great, but I'm trying to generate revenue, right? Or I'm trying to create profit. Now, I could go for hours on my answers to that paradigm, right? But I'd like to hear, what do you say to somebody that says, look, Pat, and this wasn't the majority of the comments, right? But it comes, and this is normal, right? Like, hey, this all sounds great. This is utopia, right? Was the word I saw there. Like, for somebody that's just trying to make a living, somebody who's trying to make a profit, like how do you rectify that with this purpose side?
I'll give you this is literally today's Wednesday, right? Monday night, I go to my wife and I just go, what were we talking about? We were talking about something related to GAN, and I was just like, I've been thinking about the capabilities approach, for now a few years, and I reminded her of it on Monday. And I go, hey, I've been like, I'm getting ready for this talk on Wednesday, and brought up the capabilities approach, and I'm like, so much of what we're gonna latch onto here, we're really gonna sort of be talking about this a lot more at GAN, and actually incorporating a lot of the principles that the capabilities approach has for GAN. And her first comment to me was, she literally just goes, but that sounds like we're not going to be able to make much money anymore. Right? It sounds like you're going to thankfully lose a lot of customers, a lot of just a lot of your ability to make money. That's for my wife. This is I'm being raw with her about the things I'm excited about, and her first reaction was, but are we going to be okay financially? My response is this. I look at the capabilities approach not as if we do this, it's going to hurt our profit. What I'm effectively asking you here is, why are you building this product or service? And what's your view of humanity overall, and how does your product or service help people become more of who they were created to become? I think about Twitter just for a second, right? I think Twitter has done amazing work to share information and allow us to be more connected. But also too, I'd be curious to know what the average person at Twitter's view is of humanity. What are they using this platform for the human experiment? And I think that's where I'm going. No matter if you're baking bread or if you're creating the next social community, you're creating the next TikTok. It's so important, I think, for all of us to ask, what is your view of humans? And what are you doing to help them become more of who you think humans should become? Because if we're selling bread and our view of humans is that we don't care if everyone should be fat and it's okay to eat bread all the time and that's the only thing we should eat. I'm like, great, that's your view of humanity. And you're gonna go sell a lot of bread. But if I go, our view as the bread maker is actually to go in and create a more holistic, this is one part of the food chain, this is one part of people's diet. You will position your company differently. So no, I'm with you, Jonathan. I don't believe it's an either or question, but I believe it drastically impacts maybe how you market your company and also how you continue to iterate what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think the way that you position these things, and just consumers today are caring a lot more about what companies do good in the world. Okay, a lot of our governments have failed in many. And I'm not trying to be political, right? Just a lot of our large organizations have failed, and with technologies and with communication technologies, right? The voices of the people become greater and greater. And we see that corporations are having a much larger role, whether we like to admit it or not, in kind of the trends and the views of people. And I think you put it in a really good way, Pat, where you said, it's not about extracting value; it's about giving people increasing capabilities to do things in the world, right? Because literally, yes, and I wrote down something, so somebody in the crowd, Natik, and hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly, in the chat said, our main goal, right? So you were talking about what is your main goal to give people increasing capabilities to do things in the world. Natik wrote, our main goal is to help startups with AI and analytics.
Yeah.
Right? So I look at that, I'm like, let's dig a little bit deeper, right? To see where that actually helps give people increasing capabilities to do things in the world. AI and analytics are a means to an end, right? That may be helping you put food on the tables of the companies that you're helping with those AI and analytics. You know what I mean? It's digging deeper to see where there is the abundance component of it, right?
Yeah. Here's where maybe I'll bring up two thoughts here to follow up with that. Jason Fried, one of my favorite CEOs of all time, right? CEO of Basecamp.
That's the Basecamp CEO, if anyone wants to look him up.
Exactly.
Lots of good. Yeah.
Okay, 2 days ago, April 26th, wrote this note about how Basecamp's new operating model. And what he said is we are not going to, quote unquote, lean into the societal issues of our day. And what he's effectively saying was there's a lot of work we have to do to solve systematic racism, lots of work we have to do to solve inequalities. But he effectively went, my job is to go and build the best project management software in the world. And he goes, if I focus on this, if I can, Jonathan, he had this point about going, if I sort of extract and limit myself to just focusing on this, I will be so much better than if I'm doing all these things that sort of, we'll say, everyone tells me I should be leaning into right now. But effectively what I love about this though is he's also saying, because I'm maybe not focusing on all the systematic racism in the world, all the inequalities I see, I'm looking at the capabilities approach here. And he's going, but because I'm building a great project management system, I can go and give people the capability to go and have control and agency over their environment. So he's effectively saying, I will allow people to be so much more capable if I build a great solution, great project management solution. And I love, Jonathan, your point about the gentleman who said, I'm gonna go build a great AI company. I'm like, great, go, we need it. You don't need to be responding to every issue in the world today. Go and build that great company. And I'm looking at the capabilities approach again and going, but for what purpose? Is it for you to go and make a lot of money? Or is it so that people can go and be safe to live in a secure environment through your technology? Is it so that people can play and find joy in their world, right? Is it that people can have control over their environment? I don't know what it is, but I'm going, do not stop. Go and build that AI company, but for what purpose?
I love it. Yeah. And it's like profits should not be looked at in a non-purpose kind of way. I fully believe in the power of the market, right? To create change much more than a government or anything personally. So yeah, create something that is valuable, create something. And I really do love this quote. Give people increasing capabilities to do things in the world. Because any feature that you have, you may say, oh, this is such a cool feature. At the end of the day, that feature is going to be used to give somebody else the ability to do something better that's going to impact their life and then going to impact the other lives of whatever product it is that they're creating, right?
And I think, yeah, exactly. But I think, Jonathan, just to latch on to that, but I think that's why I really want to focus on today of going like, but what's your ultimate view of a person? And I think that's where we have to start there, because otherwise we may start building weird things to go, oh, humans want to be distracted more, right? Or humans want to live in a virtual world more. And if we do, and if you believe that, that's great. But I think we just need to, as CEOs, I think it's important for us to go, what is the human created to become? Let's define that first, and then we can go and build fun stuff.
Yep. I love it. Pat, thank you so much. We went over there, but the discussion, at least in my opinion, warranted it. I thought that was fascinating. For anybody else in the audience, Pat, how can they get in touch with you? How can they reach out to you? And by the way, everybody will be getting a video of this as well in the next couple of days. But yeah, Pat.
Yeah, you can email me. I try to respond to every email within a week. So know that it may just take me a few days, but you can email me directly, and it's pat@gan.co.
All right. Pat, thank you so much.
Thank
that
you
was
all.
great.
So good. Good to see you, Jonathan.